What it do, guys? It's D'Anthony here, man, aka Hood Scout, back again for another edition of the Hood Scout podcast. And this is really a unique podcast, a podcast like no other. We're going to have athletes, we're going to have coaches, we're going to have intellectuals, we're going to have media members of all sorts. And don't forget, guys, to like this podcast, share this podcast, and help grow this podcast. This is not just my podcast. This is also your podcast. And the only reason it's going to grow is because you guys are going to be invested in it, guys. Sit back, get your beverage of choice ready, get your popcorn ready, get your dinner ready, get your steak ready, get your vegan meal ready. Tune in, guys. Hood Scout. Peace. Hey, what it do, man? Hood Scout always open on this edition, man. I got my boy DRob, wide receiver trainer out of Dallas, man. Gonna be a lot of information, man. So tune into this one, like it, share it, and man, always open, man. You talking about guys train NFL guys, college guys, high school guys, really proficient and knowledgeable about the wide receiver position, man. Continue to like this podcast, continue to share it. Let's keep this thing going, man. Hood Scout, peace. Hey, what it do, guys? Hood Scout back again for another edition of the Hood Scout podcast, man. We got a guest, man. I've been wanting to get him on for a long time, man. I first met him because I reached out to him it's probably been about 8 months ago, and wanted to come to one of his functions. I did. We've been locked in ever since then. But y'all know how I do it. I tell my guests to introduce themselves, tell people where you're from, who you are.
All right, yeah. I'm DRob. Company DRob always open. I've trained over 100 NFL wideouts. Trained a lot of high school, middle school receivers. Been doing this for like 18 years. So you know that's what I do, man. I'm a wideout specialist.
DRob, where you originally from, bro?
I'm from DeSoto. I went to DeSoto High School. Went there for 3 years, and then I finished my senior year, transferred, and finished at Kimball. Kimball High School.
So let's chop it up a little bit so we don't just let us get a little time with it. When was your first introduction into football?
Shoot, man. When I was about like 7, 8 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, I was introduced to it through my stepdad at the time. Through flag football, I used to play running back, and then I transitioned to playing wideout closer towards middle school because my older cousin was the #1 quarterback in the country at the time, Casey Printers.
Okay. Oh wow.
And he played at DeSoto. So when I was in middle school, that's when I started playing wideout, and he kind of helped me through that transition.
Now, what year are we talking in that? Is that early 2000s, DRob?
Nah, that was like 96.
Okay.
Yeah, 96.
I was a young pup. I was a young pup.
Yeah. That was like 96, 97. And shoot, a lot of people don't know Coach Bam Harris, who was at TCU, who used to be at TCU, used to be at Red Oak. And DeSoto, Bam, he used to train me. He taught me how to play wideout.
Oh man, what are some? And see, we're gonna chop this thing up, man. But what are some of those that, looking back now as a guy that's done trained many successful NFL guys and high school guys? What's one of the lessons or the things you remember from that age way back then?
Just the acceleration and your burst, how you coming off of the football, those first 10 yards. You have to run that like your life depends on it. That's one thing that I got from those guys when I was younger. And your arm action, being very deceptive, making it look like you're running full speed, coming off of the ball when you're really running like 70, 80%. So just those things that really carry with me a lot.
Man, it's gonna be good, man. Cause that's a nugget right there, man. I got to bookmark that. That's a nugget right there. So walk me through that high school stage. What high school did you go to, and what was that process like for you?
Yeah. So when my cousin left, he played at TCU, and I was coming up behind him. I went to DeSoto as well. Was all district player there, all state, all that good stuff. I was a sophomore on varsity, all that good stuff. Yeah. Return punts and kickoffs, and going into my senior year, our offensive coordinator at the time was Coach Brown. He ended up leaving DeSoto, going to Kimball, and that used to be my ride to school a lot. So I ended up leaving DeSoto and going and finishing my senior year over there at Kimball, and then that's where I met Michael Adams, who played with the Cardinals, played DB. Met Cal Ward, who's the defensive coordinator. I've been knowing Cal, though. Me and Cal ran summer track together, 9, 10 years old. I've been knowing him all my life, pretty much.
Okay.
But when we got older, he ended up going to Kimball, and I went to the Soto. But we ended up linking back up our senior year, so that was awesome.
DRob, tell me, it's 2 questions I got within this context. What was the difference between DeSoto and Kimball at that time? Was it a difference?
It was a big difference. The difference at the time was the structure, the weight room. It was more diverse, because at the time when I was going to DeSoto was like it was like kind of like Allen, Allen High School. Wow. Yeah, it was like that. Hispanic faculty and staff, white faculty and staff, like it was diverse. Still had white cheerleaders, everything. It was total different.
I just turned 30, DRob. You just taught me a history lesson. I didn't know that.
Yeah. It was like that. It was nothing how it was now.
Let me ask you, DRob. So were most of the kids still in the inner city schools at that time?
Yeah, most of the kids were still in the inner city schools. Okay. And DeSoto at the time was like how Forney was. How Forney, what I mean? So so that's how it was. It was different from the education, the education system to all of that was different. Like when I went to Kimball, classes were a lot more easier. The teachers were a lot more lenient on you. The hallways were a lot different. You had girls, red hair, tattoos.
Bro, way back then?
Man, 9th graders, 10th graders. Like,
I thought this was a new thing. Wow, that's funny. I did not know that, bro.
So it was a big culture shock for me, man. I went from having my shirt tucked in, wearing Tommy Hilfiger polo, to wearing FUBU. Air Force Ones.
Hey, that's funny.
Man, it's a different environment, but I'm glad I did it because you get the best of both worlds.
Were the athletic? Not me, because y'all, bro. Were the athletes different?
It wasn't a big difference of the athletes. The biggest difference that I saw were the linemen. The linemen were a little bit bigger out there, DeSoto, you know what I mean? But as far as the skill, the receivers and the quarterbacks, actually was they had a little bit more.
Okay.
Actually had more athletes, but not as many coaches.
Okay. Oh, wow, not as many coaches.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Wow. Walk me through that mindset of a young DRob now at Kimball, man. What you playing ball? What was you thinking college? Was you thinking let me put up big numbers? Walk me through that mindset because I want the youngsters to hear that, and you've been there before.
Yeah, man. Well, I have already established and made a name for myself at DeSoto. So when I went to, I was already getting recruited. So when I got to Kimball, coaches and scouts and stuff already knew who I was at the time. And at the time, my offensive coordinator was Coach Risen. And we was throwing the ball a lot, 4 or 5 wides and things like that.
Wow.
And shoot, maybe like right after our spring game, man, he left. And at the time, the offense was like how it is now, 4 wides, feature in the slot, because that's what they were doing with me, running a lot of screens at Kimball. And then when he left, it kind of hurt us, our offense, because we ended up going to more of a pro-style offense back because back in the day when we played, it wasn't a lot of 4 or 5 receivers, 10 personnel, 11 personnel. It was more 21. 2 running backs, 1 tight end, 2 receiver sets. You know what I mean? So the game was a little bit different. So I was trying to put up numbers at the time, but when the offense switched up, it kind of hindered me for my senior year.
Now, and I gotta say this, DRob. What was the key as an undersized wide? Now we a lot of guys get into this, they're not maybe big, they're not. What's that key for that undersized guy to really take his game to that next level? Because you're not the hugest guy, but obviously you getting recruited, you had some juice with you.
Yeah, you gotta be fast, man. You gotta run track. You gotta be 10.5 or below in the 100-meter dash. You gotta put up numbers. You got to be very, very productive. Like you got to have 40, 50 plus catches. Like you got to have 10 plus touchdowns. Like you got to have a lot of production. You got to have a resume when you're undersized like that. And like you said, you gotta be able to run track. You gotta have those times, those track times. So if those scouts see those track times when you're an undersized receiver, you'll be just fine.
Good stuff, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Walk me through that recruiting process. What were some of the colleges looking at you at that time, and what was that like? Because I know that sometimes that can be a good thing, sometimes it can be bad. But how was that process for you?
Oh, it was good. West Virginia, Illinois, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State. TCU had some school, had quite a few schools at the time. Kentucky was reaching out to me. But I ended up going to Oklahoma because the receiver coach there was recruiting me at Oklahoma State, which was Coach Wyatt.
Okay.
He left Oklahoma State and ended up being a receiver coach at Oklahoma.
Okay.
And so that's what ended up making my decision to go to Oklahoma because of him. And one thing that I would say to kids now making that recruiting process, and from seeing it from now, I would pick a school, man, who really wants you. I mean, because Coach White wanted me, you know what I mean? But the overall staff, everybody, and don't pick a school because of the coach, because he was there with me for 2 years and then he left to go coach in the NFL. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So now you got to start all over, win a whole new coaching staff over, and, get on their good side. So don't pick a school because of a coach, man. If I had to do it all over again, I would pick a school just because of the environment, seeing how I would be able to go to school there without the coach even being there.
That's a good nugget. Y'all. That is a good nugget right there. DRob, talk to me about like when picking the school, what should we got what you just said, which was nugget, but what should some of these youngsters even ask? What should be some of these questions they should ask? Now they get fascinated over the uniforms and over this. What should walk them through that? What should they really be trying to understand? They may not know, but because you was in it.
Yeah, from a receiver standpoint, for why I started getting recruited, you want to ask about the depth chart, how many receivers, how many seniors coming back or how many are leaving or whatever the case may be. You also want to ask how many receivers have they put in the NFL? Because and the ones that they put in the NFL, how many are producing once they get there? You want to ask that question. You want to ask how long have you been there as the coach, if the coach that's recruiting you? It's because, you got stability. You see how long they've been there, or whether they bounce around. You kind of see what the window kind of gauging from that. And what's their plans on using you? What's their plans on using you in their offense? How do you see them using you in your offense? And can you help them get to the NFL?
That's good.
That's what you want to ask, because nowadays that's all kids. That's what they want to do. So you need a coach to look in your eye and tell you how he's going to help the plans for you and all of that. What kind of offense we running, and look at the receivers that's in their offense and look at their stats. Look at not only the number one receiver, look at the number 3 receiver. Look at all of them. Are they spreading the ball around?
You teach them, man.
In the one guy. You got to look at all of that.
Hey, we got a coaching conference right here, man. DRob teaching. I like this, bro. Let me tell you this, DRob. Let me bounce this off of you. How important is NIL? Should these kids be thinking what you just said, or should they be getting swayed by NIL deals? Because that's the landscape of this thing now.
Man, I'm kind of torn in between because I'm a little bit old school. I like the NIL deal, of course, because if a lot of kids say coaches can bounce and leave, kids should be able to get money. I like the NIL deal when it comes to getting deals off the field and things of that nature. I just don't like it. The only reason I don't like it is because some people are getting NIL deals who haven't done anything on the field yet. You know what I mean? Like if you already produced on the field, on the collegiate level, yeah, of course, you're an All-American, you're in magazines and all of that. Yeah, you deserve an NIL deal. But a lot of these youngsters, the high school kids, the 5-star, the 4-star recruits, I think it can hurt a few of them, man, if they don't look at it the right way. Because when you're making a lot of money out the field, you kind of lose your edge to work hard in the weight room, pulling sleds, running your routes, doing the extra little stuff that it's going to take to get you to the NFL because your pockets are already swollen. You already got money. You know what I mean? So is that hunger going to be the same? That's the only thing that I question.
Boy. That's some good stuff, DRob. Okay, so you get to Oklahoma, man, and that's big time college football, man. What was that like? And walk me through that experience a little bit.
Yeah, man, it was So you walking in there as a freshman, man, and they came off of a national championship. They just won a national championship. So at the time, Oklahoma was like Alabama is now. You know, they were rolling.
Yep.
And the receiver room was stacked. You know, we had Mark Clayton, who was a first-round pick. You know, with my brother Travis Wilson, who was a 3rd-round pick. Will Peoples, he went. Mark Bradley, he went 2nd round.
Who the boy, man? I remember them D-Rob. I remember going up watching them.
Yeah. Brandon Jones.
Yep.
He went 3rd round. You know, we had Juwan Rankins. You know, so we had a lot of guys, and I was a freshman, and most of those guys were juniors and sophomores. So one thing that I learned when I got to college, especially at a school like that, is that you got to bring it every day. Okay. Like it can't be any off days or anything like that. You don't feel like practicing today, your groin hurt, this you're gonna go have. Nah, every day you got to bring it, but you got a chance to also see where you stacked up against the competition, because, you know, as far as the DBs, because a lot of guys, a lot of receivers that you can ask them, and DBs. When I played at Oklahoma, it was a problem at practice every day when they lined up against me. You know what I mean? But I learned that watching Mark Clayton practice, watching Travis Wilson, watching those guys, you know, be a dog every day of practice, making those guys look like they don't even belong on the football field. You know, so that's the type of mentality that you got to have.
DRob, so you got a little 9th grader out there, you got a 10th grader out there. They don't know that college grind. What's that grind like to them? So I'm not saying they got, if they're in 9th grade, they got to grind like they're in college, but let them know what that grind is like, because they may think they work hard now, and it's like it might be a little bit different.
Can you hear me? Am I muffling up?
No, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
It's kind of muffling up on my end.
Okay, I was saying, you know, you got like a little 9th grader, 10th grader who may think they working, but I'm not saying they got to work like a college guy, but how they work at that college level. Can I tell these young guys how they work at that level?
Oh yeah, it's. I mean, you got to get up 5 a.m., 5:30 workouts. So you work out for 2 hours, and then you got to go to class. Class may start at 9 or 8, or whatever your first class is. And so you got class, and then middle of the day, they'll let you go get some lunch, and then you got meetings around 1 o'clock or so, and then you're on the field practicing for a few hours. And after practice, you have to do mandatory study hall hours. Mm-hmm. So you got to go to study hall and get your study hall hours in from the class that you're taking. So it's a job every day. You're gonna find out if you love it or not.
Hey,
you're gonna really find out if you love it. And it's not like you can miss class and no one to know. I mean, your coaches will know, you know what I mean, because they got class checkers.
Okay.
But they're not gonna say nothing to you till maybe like last minute. You know what I mean? You may think you're getting by maybe 3 weeks, a month, and then they're gonna call you in that office or something like that, and they're gonna let you have it.
Okay. So you kind of get through college, man, and I'm not sure what happened, but you get through with that. When did you know you're gonna go into this next phase of your career?
It was when I was with the I had a workout with the Edmonton Eskimos and whatnot, and then I messed my ankle up, and I was trying to bounce back, and in between trying to rehab, bounce back, and continue my football career, or try to figure out my next move. So what I started doing, I started substitute teaching, man. I started substitute teaching at Kimball High School. I was substituting at other DISD schools, and I was noticing that Kimball really didn't have an off-season program like that. Like they didn't do anything after school. They just went home, like when the season was over. And you went to school there. You get your pictures on the walls up there, so you kind of take some pride in it, as far as keeping the kids going. And so after schools, I started holding sessions. Ooh. Just for free. I was just, look, man, after school, y'all meet me after school, man. We're going to get some work. I had linemen out there, linebackers, receivers, DBs. I was just setting up different circuits.
Yeah. So you were teaching these other positions too, or you had them out there and somebody else was?
Nah, it was just me by myself, just doing off-season training.
Okay.
Like functional movement stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't no positions, but it was all, everybody could do it, all positions.
Visionary.
So one station may have been doing the ladders, the other station may have been doing change of direction. I just had it all broke up. But them kids started loving it, man, and then the receivers especially started loving it. I started holding receiver sessions, and they started telling their friends at different schools about it. And I started holding sessions up there at Kimball on the weekends. And shoot, man, I wouldn't charge it. Me and Clay Mack, that's my business partner.
Okay.
Clay Mack, he was doing the DBs, and I was doing the receivers on the weekends.
Wow.
And we started holding sessions at Lancaster High School. And this was all when I was working out, still trying to figure out what I was gonna do.
Yeah.
And maybe 8 kids were coming for me, and maybe 5 or 6 were coming from Mac. At first, it started off like I had like 3 or 4 on the weekends. Mac maybe had 2 or 3. And then one weekend we looked up, we came out to a session. Man, there was about 60 kids out there, man.
Wow.
No, it was like 30-some receivers, like 30-some DBs. And we was like, man, who invited all these people? You know, kids were telling their friends about it without consulting with us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we showed up to the session. And so I looked at Mac. I'm like, Mac. He's like, man, I say, man, we might need to turn this thing into a business.
Okay.
And that's how it started. Right there. We were just doing it just for the love of it.
That's amazing, DRob. What year are we talking in? 2000.
So this was like 2005.
Wow, that's good, bro. That's good stuff.
This
Better than the game. So what? Give me a nugget as an early trainer. You know, a lot of guys trying to get into the profession now. What's a nugget as an early guy working with them athletes, or just in general? What's one of those things you kind of seen early that you was kind of like, that's interesting?
Well, you know, when I was training, man, I had to get a lot of kids to start telling me about social media. Like, hey, coach, you got to start posting this, man. Coach, you got to start getting you a photographer, media people, and all this stuff. I'm like, dang, I didn't know anything about none of that, because when I started out training, there was no social media like that. Everything was pretty much on its own.
Yeah,
it was word of mouth.
Yep.
But for the new age trainer, what I would tell them, man, is you know, trust in your process and believe in yourself. Don't look left or right in anybody else's lane. Be original. You know, and show love to it. I mean, like, don't look at it as a competition. You know, I don't look at this training thing as a competition and all of it. It's a village. Everybody's raised helping these kids. Everybody can't be at one place at one time. You know what I mean? So whatever side of town you on, whatever state you in or whatever, be the best in your area. Like, just be the best. Like, whatever you do in your area, don't look, because I never looked at myself when I first started training. That wasn't my goal, was to be called the GOAT or to be called the best to ever do this, you know, and all of that. No, I was just doing it because I knew that these kids, it was a need for it, and these kids needed it. Yeah, that's it.
You got 3 more minutes, DRob?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I still want to chop it up, man. I like we flowing. So, when did you start? What was your first experience with some of these guys that you trained and went on to the NFL? Because I know some of them you trained young. Talk to me about a few of those guys that really went to excel, maybe at college or something like that.
Yeah, my first dude was Jacory Shepard. Jacory Shepard got out of Mesquite Horn. He'd been all the way up through, and he went to college to play receiver, and then he ended up switching to DB, and then ended up getting drafted, playing DB in the 4th round. So that was my first guy that I took from homegrown, him and Jakeem Grant. Okay. Jakeem Grant, Desmond Lewis, who went to school out here in North Mesquite, who ended up going to Central Arkansas, played with the Bills. So those are the few first guys that I started from a long time ago. You know, from high school, like Rashard Higgins. You know, I was getting those guys ready. Damian Gamlin, he had a little shot. You know, those were my homegrown guys that and they started telling their friends and everybody else, and that's how it started happening.
Mm-hmm. And then, how did some of the bigger guys, maybe some of the NFL guys, start to hear about you? Is it a matter of reaching out in communication, or is it a matter of you just building up that reputation?
It's a little bit of both. Building up I built up the reputation. I've gone to the NFL Combine. Like a lot of these coaches, a lot of these high school coaches, they go to a lot of coaches conventions. You know what I mean? Which is good. You need all that knowledge. But I spent a lot of my time going to the NFL Combine. You know, going to the Senior Bowl. You know, meeting NFL GMs, receiver coaches. You know, because I've been in like 5 or 6 different NFL training camps, being the intern receiver coach, just being around, just seeing it, seeing the lingo, seeing how they, you know, seeing how they talk, you know. So, you know, that's really, if you're trying to do what I do and separate yourself and stand out. I mean, because it's a lot of NFL playbooks that you're going to be able to have access to, and route combinations, the route tree that you're going to be able to teach that a lot of these other trainers don't know because they haven't actually been in the building.
Now, DRob, I know you just said you don't like look at a goal and talk like that. Now, I ain't been around a lot of receiver coaches. I admit that, but I think you really one of the best in the business, bro. I think you're one of the best trainers in the business. And I want to segue that statement until I seen you on NFL Network last year down at LSU. Talk to me about that, because you actually had an interview with one of the, I think, NFL Network media personalities. Where was you down there? Walk me about that process. It's maybe some nuggets on that.
Yeah, so I got Terrace Marshall ready for the draft, and he ended up going second round at LSU. So he was with me for like 2 or 3 months throughout his draft process, and his agent, he sent me down to LSU with him for his pro day with him and Jamar Chase. So I was down there with those guys, helping them out, just giving them that extra little support when after they run a certain route, look over there at me and thumbs up or thumbs down, how they look, just to have that extra confidence behind them, both of them. Because I also warmed Jamar up and gave him a few nuggets before he ran his routes and things of that nature. But the reporter was Jane Slater, so she was asking me, questions about Terrace and questions about Jamar and what separates him from other receivers in the NFL draft. And I mean, she knows me from a while because, she knows I work with Emmanuel Sanders. She knows that I work with Dez, Antonio Brown. So she found me when I was watching the guys run routes and came over there to me and was like, "Hey, you think I can interview you real quick?" I was like, "Oh man, come on, Jane. I'm trying to watch my guys." She's like, "I know, DRob. I promise it's not gonna be too long. I just want to ask you a few questions, man." She's like, "I owe you one." I'm like, "All right, cool. I'll go ahead and do it." And so that's how that happened. And she ended up interviewing me, and I was getting a whole bunch of texts and stuff on my phone. See, I was thinking she was going to interview me, they was going to chop it up, and they was going to air it later. You know what I mean? I didn't know I was live, like, right then.
That's funny, bro.
Live, like, right then and there. So, yeah, it was cool.
Man, one thing I like about you, DRob, to me, you a technician. You the nuances of it, man. Let's get into a little bit of this training thing, because I've been already training many guys from middle school to high school to even a pro session before. I think it's a science. I think you like a scientist, DRob. And a guy can run around, he can think it's good, but you can say, hey, you didn't get low, you get this. What do you look for? What's some of those little nuggets that you look for with that trained eye as a veteran in this game?
I look at their pad level when they're coming off of the football. When I look at the arm action, how well are they really selling that they're running deep when they're coming off of this football? Are they holding any energy or speed back? And as far as the top of the route, especially on the 45-degree angle routes, I look to see do they have quick feet coming in and out of their breaks, or are they pushing off their outside foot? Are they running around their inside foot to come out of their break? Those are things that I look for, and you can really hear it because it's a little thing that I do with them. I tell them to speed their feet up, so I can just hear with my ears whether it's they're coming out of the thing in 3 steps or is it taking them 5 or 6 steps to come out of their break. As far as the speed cuts, the speed outs, the thing that I look for when the guys are sticking on that 1 foot, I look how loose they are in their hips. Like, can they really bend and drop and get down there? To help decelerate coming out of those turns, out of those 90-degree angle cuts. So when they're doing a lot of speed cuts, that's what I really look for, how well they can drop their weight and not lose speed coming out of their break when they're coming out of it.
Good stuff. DRob, talk to me, how often should these young guys, let's say juniors and seniors, let's say juniors in high school, how often should these guys be putting the time in, and what's a good route, what's a good way they can get better with their hands?
They should be doing this at least 3 days a week, 4 if they want to push it, but at least 3. They need to be catching the football every day, every single day. You need to be touching the football like 100 times a day. Ooh. Training your hand-eye coordination every single day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Is it, okay, so let's say a kid, he might say, man, I'm just by myself. Who gonna train with me? I ain't got to train. They need to train with their homeboy.
You ain't got no train. You can have your mom or somebody. You can have somebody underhanding it. You the stationary target. and you just working on until you get with somebody that can throw, but you're just working on training your hands and your eyes. You know what I mean? You got to train that. You got to be disciplined with your hand-eye coordination. So you got to train that a lot, whether it's with a tennis ball, somebody tosses you the ball, you can still get good work in training your hand-eye coordination.
We're coming up on 30 minutes, man. Hood Scout talking with infamous trainer DRob, NFL, college, wide receiver, high school, all these training, all these. Pretty get ready to end in just a second, DRob. A few more questions, man. Where you want to take this thing? What are some goals, or what are some things you want to continue to get better in, or that maybe you want to come on the horizon for you?
I've been talking to quite a few NFL teams, about next step as far as me being getting closer to being a coach in the NFL, or being a consultant for the NFL, coming in the off season, working with their wideouts. Same way as colleges, I have an agent now. I have a sports agent who helps me behind the scenes and working on things of that nature. So that's the next step for me is getting into college more with the universities, working with their receiver staff and offensive coordinator and their receiver coaches in the offseason, getting them with their wideouts. I've been approached by a few universities as far as college coaching, but I've kind of turned those down right now because, I have a son who's also going into the 9th grade who's coming up. So I kind of want to be here with him for like the next, 4 or 5 years or so before I make any, move like that. But I think where I'm headed in right now, man, is a good spot for me. I'm able to call my own shots and move how I want to move and, live stress-free without anybody looking over your shoulder or anything like that.
Nah, that's a good point, man. I talked to a lot of these coaches, man, and a lot of times they say these colleges, these guys gone a lot. They on the road a lot. When you got family, that can kind of interfere with that as well. Man, we finna get ready to wrap this thing up. Man, I see some jerseys behind you, man. Talk to me about what's behind you real quick. I don't know if the people can see you. I got to slide over, D-Rod. I want to talk about
I got Miko Hardman right here, yep. Super Bowl champ, and then over here, I got my boy Terrace Marshall. Who I got ready for the draft a few years ago. So I got quite a few of them in my room, man. But it's like my little jersey room for guys that, that I train to work with in the off season. They'll come home and give me jerseys, pictures, and, and sign them and all of that good stuff, man. So it's all love, man. And you can really tell that, these guys, they really appreciate the work that you pour into them because a lot of that stuff, I don't even ask. They just do it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hey, man, 30 minutes in for the end with this one, D-Rob. Tell me, what does train like a pro mean, and what does it mean to be a wide receiver? And we'll end on those two questions.
Well, train like a pro not only means, of course, the way you approach your workouts, the habits that you're building when you are working out, but also taking care of your body outside of the football field, the way you conduct yourself outside of the football field, the way you handle the media when they're interviewing you, just being a stand-up person. So I train like a pro. I like to use it especially a lot for my high school kids because that's all I'm around a lot is NFL guys, So I want them to kind of go in that model. That's what training like a pro is, not only on the field when you're running routes, but just period, in classroom, grades, all around, And as far as what it takes to, be a better receiver, right? That was the question.
Yeah. What that mean? You what's that? You're a receiver. What does that mean? What kind of pride comes with that?
Yeah. Sure. A lot of that stuff, man. You gotta get used to running your routes. I know you look at all the drills on Instagram and the YouTube, but you got to get used to running your routes full speed and get comfortable running your routes full speed and coming out of your breaks efficiently. Without messing up and don't be afraid of it. Like you got to get just like at the gym when you're shooting 100 jumpers, you got to get used to running your routes full speed cuts, whether it's in breaking routes, out breaking routes. Get used to running routes really a lot. I mean, that's one thing that kids are gonna say when they come to a lot of my sessions. Yeah, DRob, we do drills, but you're gonna run a lot of routes.
Yeah,
you're gonna run routes.
Yeah, I got one more question. So you said like that. How important is it for these young guys to compete, DRob? And I say this because I've been around each other. You got some guy who gonna get in line, keep going. You got one guy he gonna be a little timid because he might not know the craft of position. How important is it from a mental standpoint to really compete, man?
Yeah, you have to really show that you're confident in your ability. You can't be hesitant, and it's very important because when you go to these bigger camps like the Next Level Athlete, the Rivals camps, the Nike, Under Armours, when it's more receivers, because at my receiver camps, it's only like maybe 40 to 60 receivers. Mm-hmm. At those camps, it's gonna be like 400. Woo. 300 wide out. So if you're timid and scared to go when there's only 40, 50 kids out there, I know when it's a bigger crowd, a bigger environment, you're going to stand in the back of the line and hardly get any reps. And it's going to get hard to get any media attention. It's going to get hard, to win any type of MVP award that you're seeking out, trying to win, or just to get your name out there, period. It's going to be hard if you're timid and scared. So you just can't be afraid to mess up, man. And when you go to these camps, remember, there's no rules as far as being polite, waiting in line, all of that. No, you gotta be rude and get your reps when you go to these camps.
Gotta get there and take it, guys. If you want to play at that next level, man. Hey, this was a banger, DRob. This 30 minutes went by super fast, bro. I'm gonna post a snippet of this right when we get through. I'm gonna upload it, man. Appreciate you, bro. Thank you for coming on, man, and train like a pro. Keep going.
Train like a pro. Appreciate that.
All right, bro. Peace.
All right, now.
All right, Doc.